I'm Sharon Natoli, and recently a few people have been asking me about my opinion in relation to the recently released EAT-Lancet Commission report on food, health and sustainability. It's a report that was released in January in Oslo and then had a local launch in Melbourne last week that I attended. And it received quite a bit of media attention, so you may have come across the recommendations that were made. Basically, what the report set out to do is to answer the questions: how can the food supply, how can we produce and consume food in a way by 2050 to help to meet the UN Sustainable Development Goals and also the Paris Agreement? And so what targets should we be aiming for from a global perspective to enable us to do that? And so the report, the Commission got together 37 experts from 16 different countries in the areas of health, environment and sustainability, and came up with some suggested global targets. It's important work because we know that food has a major influence on the environment, and we also know from a food business perspective that consumers are increasingly looking to buy from businesses that demonstrate a responsible approach around health and sustainability. And so it is a report that would be important to be across in terms of what the recommendations were. Basically what it came up with in terms of the recommendations from a consumption perspective was that we should double our intake of fruit, vegetables, nuts, legumes and whole grains, and reduce our intake of red meat and sugar by about 50% by 2050 in order to help meet sustainable targets from a food consumption perspective. And from a production perspective, the recommendations were really around how can we get more food from have less environmental impact, and also of course reduce food loss and waste. So what this means in terms of influencing consumer behaviour is probably not much, given that global targets, people find it difficult to relate global targets to their individual eating habits, particularly if the recommendations are a bit away from where they're actually eating. So one of the things it's probably doing is raise awareness with consumers, but probably not have a significant impact on individual eating habits. And we know this because the dietary guidelines for Australians are pretty much in line with what the recommendations from the EAT-Lancet report state, and that is having a diet that's high in the fruit, vegetables, grains, nuts and legumes, and having enough animal-derived foods to meet your nutritional requirements. So that kind of recommendation is not new. It's what we've known for a long time, and yet we do know that 90% of Australians, for example, still don't meet their recommended intake for vegetables. So we need to help people to eat better, not only for their own personal health, but that of the planet, and we probably need to look at other ways to do that. Where the report really kicks in, I guess, and where it's of most relevance is that it may have more likely to have influence on government policy, be something that will be taken into account when the next dietary guidelines are reviewed. And also it does provide some ideas for food businesses that are looking to set strategies around sustainable food production and also strategies around sustainable food consumption, and pulling that into commitments and targets and demonstrating actions in this area. So if you are interested in more detailed overview, I will be putting that together in my next newsletter, Perspectives on the Future of Food. So you can go to my website and sign up for that if you're interested in more detail, or certainly please get in touch if you'd like to talk about the implications of this report and also the emerging research we're seeing in this area and what that might mean for your business.